Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson-Mill, and a very special welcome to our viewers on onespotmedia.com. So we're talking governance and accountability this evening in light of our news reports about the phone bills of ministers and junior ministers. Joining us in studio, we have Claude Robinson, public affairs commentator, Jeanette Calder, former co-executive director of the Jamaica Civil Society Coalition, and Mikhail Phillips, member of Parliament for North West Manchester. We should say we did invite a member of the government to also be on this program. We were told that Dr. Chang was unavailable and there was no one else available to speak on this issue. TVJ's Vashon Brown has this overview.
TVJ News first started reporting on the phone bills of government ministers back in 2014. At that time, the then PNP administration spent over $5 million on cell phone charges in 11 ministries for the July 2013 to June 2014 period for cabinet ministers and their juniors. Of all the cell phone records we received then, Foreign Affairs State Minister Arnaldo Brown's bill for the year was the highest. The junior minister who roamed on his foreign trips had a $1.09 million cell phone bill for the 12-month period. For the month of June 2014 alone, Mr. Brown's cell phone bill was $410,000. Then Energy Minister Philip Paulwell's bill was over $930,000. He had 2 cell phones. Robert Pickersgill sought to defend his $791,000 phone bill.
It averages about $60,000 a month. It involves me traveling because it's the most I've traveled in my ministerial duties. And there are far countries where the rates, the what you call it, the roaming rates are high. And I was doing the government's business. The highest bill there coincides with me being in Dubai, I've been in Nairobi, I've been in China, I've been in Japan. You know what I promise? I'm going to go through the calls with a fine-tooth comb, and anyone that is personal, I'll pay.
For the period, then National Security Minister Peter Bunting's $32,000 bill was the lowest. Of note too is that his monthly cell phone bill remained at $2,700. The Jamaica Labour Party demanded an explanation for the phone bills racked up by the ministers.
I'm concerned at the deteriorating health of the country and the welfare. Therefore, every penny spent should be carefully protected.
Given the circumstances currently in the country, one have to ask questions. We should get an explanation for that level of expenditure on cell phones, irrespective of who the individual is.
For roaming, for example, you pay even if you receive calls, and I think in some cases you pay as much as $2 per minute, even if you receive calls. You pay, for example, if you're using your phone to check your emails or if you have to go on the internet. In fact, data charges for roaming are even higher than the voice charges. So I think it's important to note that I don't think these charges reflect people sitting on a phone for 5 or 10 hours a day chatting.
The Foreign Affairs Minister at the time, A.J. Nicholson, expressed concern about his junior minister's phone bill.
That clearly requires some investigation, and it is my intention, I heard about it this evening, it's my intention to speak with the permanent secretary and the other first officials and the minister himself. He is not in Jamaica at this time, but as soon as he returns, I intend to confront him with this.
Arnaldo Brown also sought to explain his high phone bills. He acknowledged that the bills were very high, but he said that was largely because of data and roaming charges. He further explained that during the period, he went on 15 overseas assignments on behalf of the government and the people of Jamaica. He said he visited several countries, including the United Kingdom, Turkey, and Indonesia. Experts said more could be done to reduce the bills of government ministers.
I would never purport to tell a politician how to run his ministry or his constituency, but it also comes down to planning. If you're away from Wi-Fi, if you're away from all of that, then you are going to use data. But maybe you should basically schedule your meeting so you can use Wi-Fi and use Skype and Google Hangouts.
Employ technology. That's why they're there. WhatsApp is certainly one area. You only need internet access. You don't necessarily have to make phone calls. But I think some of the calls that they make, voice is important. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that's the issue. It's the roaming issue, especially for those who are traveling, where the cost for roaming is extremely high. really doesn't matter what network you're on, it's extremely high. So I think if they can avoid that roaming issue by employing different means of communication, like the WhatsApp, for example, then I'm sure some of that bill will be reduced.
The then opposition leader Andrew Holness was among those who blasted the government for spending over $5 million on cell phone charges for a one-year period.
The Prime Minister said, others are talking, but she is working. When we know who is really doing the talking, and their talk is not cheap, they're talking some multi-million-dollar discussion. I want to see what action will be taken by the Prime Minister to deal with those of our ministers who have excessive phone bills. Watch and see if anything going on. Nothing going on.
We also turned the spotlight on parish councils in March 2015. For the April to September 2014 period, the St. Elizabeth Parish Council on its 69-member closed user group phones had a bill for almost $1.6 million. For May, the council's CUG phone bill was $670,000. $545,000 of that came on the Secretary-Manager David Gardner's bill. In a letter to TVJ News, he asserted that $445,000 of that was for roaming charges. This was when a four-member team from the parish council visited China in April and May. He explained that it was agreed that his phone would be available to the other officers with whom he was traveling. Fast forward to 2017, another ATI request by our news center. 9 government ministers and 2 state ministers have racked up cell phone bills amounting to almost $2.8 million between March 2016 and February 2017. Well, that was in May. By July, we received more bills. One in particular stood out. In 1 year alone, the cell phone bill for one government minister surpassed $8 million, half of that sum in a single month. We're talking about Finance Minister Audley Shaw. We sought a response from him.
Hi, Mr. Shaw. Good afternoon. Wanted to get a quick word with you. I know you sent out a release regarding the phone bill.
Audley Shaw's bill for the 1 year period was $8.34 million.
$8 million is a lot of money to be spent on a phone bill. $8 million is also roughly about 40% of the CDF, which is the money we get to take care of everybody in a constituency. It also is about twice the pay that we receive as parliamentarians.
I think the outrage that Jamaicans would have felt when Minister Brown did it, former Minister Brown did it, is a similar outrage we should feel now, especially that we would have gone through the process already and that we should have learned from the process.
Probably more disturbingly, it fits into a pattern that we have seen. We have seen in the bushing program, we have seen in the reports of the expenditure for grass, for a minister, and now this. What we are seeing is a pattern where public resources are being diverted, either for the purposes of the Jamaica Labour Party or of particular ministers in the Jamaica Labour Party.
The Finance Ministry indicated that Minister Shaw was only told about his high phone bill this year, and that was after the Financial Secretary got wind of TVJ's ATI request in March. TVJ News did not get a full response to the request for the phone bills in the Finance Ministry until Friday, July 7. We also did not get copies of the actual bills, just a sheet outlining the total for each month. In a single month, the minister's bill reached over $4.2 million. So what's the explanation? For August and October, the Finance Ministry said Mr. Shaw traveled overseas for urgent personal reasons and unofficial business. He was involved in finalizing Jamaica's precautionary standby agreement with the IMF. The Finance Ministry says Audley Shaw has paid roughly $2.6 million to the ministry for personal roaming data usage. TVJ News did not get a copy of a check or a receipt, nor any indication as to when the money was paid. There was also a discount of a little over $1 million. In the wake of our exclusive report on the big bill the Finance Minister incurred in just a year, the government on Tuesday announced a major policy shift. Labeling the situation as unacceptable, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced that the government will now move to cap the mobile phone bills of cabinet ministers. That decision came out of an urgently arranged cabinet meeting where it was also decided that the cap will apply retroactively. In other words, ministers will have to find the money to pay bills in the past once the cap is decided. The technology minister was also mandated to enter into discussions with telecommunications providers to devise standard cell phone and data packages for government ministers. Vashon Brown for All Angles.
Thank you so much, Vashon. And let me just repeat, we did invite a representative from the government to speak with us. We're told that Dr. Horace Chang would not be able to attend and that no other representative of the government was available to speak on this issue. Remember, you can tweet along with us. Our hashtag is TVJ All Angles. Stay tuned. We're back in a moment.